You're listening to Freedom Junkie Radio.
Welcome back, Freedom Junkies, to another episode of Freedom Junkie Radio, the podcast that brings more freedom into our lives in any way we can find it. My guest today is Jacquie Baker. She is from New Zealand. She escaped New Zealand during the pandemic.
Australia.
Okay, she escaped Australia. That's right. That's how the story goes. She's going to tell her story because I'm going to ask, because I've heard this story. Jacquie is a friend of mine. She lives here in Central Texas. They escaped Australia. Although she and her family are from New Zealand, she'll tell the story. They ended up in Australia, have chosen Central Texas as their home. We welcome them with big open arms. And Jacquie has started a networking group that we're going to talk about. It's for freedom lovers so that we can have an economy that works together. And we're going to be talking about that. Jacquie's also on the carnivore diet. And long before it was hip or cool, she's been doing it, I want to say, for about 5 years. And I'm going to ask her about that too. So before we get any further into this, I need to give a shout out to Freedom Junkie Radio's sponsor, Chris's Coins in South Austin on Slaughter Lane. If you need gold or silver gifts, if you want to support Freedom Junkie Radio, go pay Chris a visit or find him online at KRIScoins.com. He is a super laid back, easygoing, freedom loving guy who will give you a great deal, the best deal he can on gold and silver. Now, with no further ado, let me introduce my guest, Jacquie Baker. I'm going to read a little bit of the bio for you because I can't do you justice. Jacquie Baker is a seasoned marketing strategist and co-owner of Ghost Flower Creative alongside her husband, Christopher Shaw. She also spearheaded Jax 5D, a conscious business consulting agency. At the core of Jacquie's work is a mission to evolve businesses from models driven by scarcity and greed to ones centered on love, joy, and spiritual success. Over the past 15 years, Jacquie has worked with over 1,000 businesses to help grow and scale. She has had Australia federal contracts over the years to mentor and help small businesses implement fast-working, easy-to-implement strategies to help business owners market their businesses. Driven by her pursuit of independence and personal freedom, Jacquie and her family relocated to from Melbourne to Texas. This move mirrors her unwavering determination to lead a life on her terms. Then I'm going to talk about Rebel Heart networking later when we get there. And so when I met you, I learned that you were a marketing expert. You had done tons of marketing with big names in Australia. And you guys had come here and were such huge freedom lovers. And when you got to Texas, one of the first things you did was buy guns because you couldn't have any in Australia and New Zealand. And we helped you figure out where you could go to shoot them. My house, right? So welcome, Jacquie. Welcome to Jacquie Radio.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely guns were one of the first things that we did when we got our IDs all sorted and we could legally purchase them, and much to the disgust of our friends and family in New Zealand and Australia. So
isn't the brainwashing, you can see it.
Yeah, like they could not believe that we would purchase guns. Like it was like, you have to be kidding. You're joking, right? You're A, joking, and B, what are you doing having guns in a house with children? You know, like just so completely brainwashed to thinking that any form of self-protection is what you would do with guns. You know, it's all gun violence.
And another good word for it is programming. We are all of us are so programmed, and it's so hard to see. You can't see your own programming.
You can't. Well, not unless you're very lucky and you have some sort of awakening. But even then, you're not going to see it all. So,
right.
Well, when we went out, at son Finley, who was about 14 at the time, told his friends in school in Melbourne that we were leaving, they started crying because they thought he would get shot. that was like, that is the perception of the amount of gun violence that there is in America, where they were petrified for his safety.
That's just amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So the only reason they would think that is because that's what the media has told them.
The export is, like, I believe that America used to export ideas of freedom and independence and prosperity, and now they export the ideas of control and totalitarianism. So America is held up as a place to show people that you shouldn't have guns, you shouldn't protect yourself, that people can't be trusted, and that only the government should be able to look after your safety and your well-being. So I think America now is exporting fear.
That's interesting that that we're exporting it. I would have thought that the globalists would have just had a control over the media and what their perceptions are of other countries, and that the media was creating that the government was. But perhaps from what I'm hearing, it sounds like our media is exporting that, because you've been
I guess it's like the globalist, but the agenda, I think that if you think of America as potentially like a giant film set, and that there's these incidents happening, they definitely help coerce and create a narrative, say, of removing guns or the Second Amendment. But those same stories are put on such a high profile overseas that they are used as a reinforcement as to justify why people aren't allowed guns or to protect themselves.
Okay, but you saw through it. You saw through it. One of the first things you did when you got here was buy guns. How did you?
Well, I think Chris, my husband, he is a lot more, he was like, fuck yeah, let's go get some guns, this is exciting. And it took me a little while to sort of get comfortable with the idea. But like, as soon as I went into a gun shop, and they all were so interesting and pretty, and but yeah. And then I think it was a big turnaround. Well, I didn't believe that New Zealand should get rid of the guns in like 2019. They kind of went around and confiscated or voluntarily handed in their guns after a shooting in Christchurch, right? So, but guns, and I'd lived in Australia for 10 years where there were just no guns because they got rid of the guns in the 90s. So it was kind of like I hadn't been around guns. They weren't part of my vernacular or thinking or anything. But it became when you kind of start reading into it, and the right to defend yourself, and and the arguments why it is a right, it all made sense to me. Like, it totally made sense. So I did very long, and then guests that have come from New Zealand who have been very anti-gun, it's taken about 24 hours to understand why the Second Amendment is really awesome. So
okay, so is there gun violence in Australia?
No, well, it's just about impossible to get a gun.
Well, but see,
like, I wouldn't have seen. I lived there for 10 years, and I don't know if I knew anyone that owned a gun.
Okay, right, but what about the criminals? Do the criminals have guns?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
Well, see, then that would be then their argument holds water. If no
I definitely think that the argument for like, the argument for it is good. It's only when you start having police and, say, UN patrols, and potentially the government starts turning on their people, which when you saw the freedom rallies in Melbourne, where they were using rubber bullets and stuff, but it doesn't take a very, it only takes a few steps from a government that's using weapons to control crowds to potentially change their reasoning or their justification to start, using guns as to kill people. So I think lowering crime, that's fine, but also lowering crime because you're not going to steal stuff because the person might shoot you. You know, they both kind of work. It's the encroachment of the government and one group of people having permission to have weapons while the other are unarmed that it really gets, for me, that's where it makes sense.
Okay, and you've moved to Texas where probably at least half the people you know own firearms, own guns. And what are your feelings about Texas and gun ownership now that you know a bunch of us?
Well, it's just nothing. Like it's, you know, like people, everybody I know that they take it as a responsibility. They've trained their children to have a lot of knowledge around it. It's something that it's almost like they hold in some sort of, not sacred, not like some God thing, but they understand that there is a responsibility to be informed about how to use it, how to store it safely. You know, like it's almost ritualistic in the sense that they understand that is something that you've got to take seriously. You know, like people aren't just out there. And so my experience is that the education level creates this bubble of safety and protection around them because they understand what they're dealing with. Where I believe that if you have very little understanding or very little assimilation into a society, you're going to be able to, that's where the sort of the abuse of it goes. It's probably like psychedelics, you know, and like back it was a ritual thing and it was integrated into the tribes and they understood that it was medicine and they understood that there was a rite of passage and people needed to be guided and taught how to use it to be able to access it. But then you get like just crazy drug abuse because there's none of the elders and it's not integrated into society, it's been banned and then it becomes abused. That's kind of how I see the respect and the level of gun ownership here.
That makes
But
sense.
for the most part, nobody's like, you know, you wouldn't know.
No.
You know, yeah.
Okay, so tell us the story. It is the most harrowing, amazing story. Every little twist and turn in your story from getting to Australia, from Australia to Texas during the pandemic. If one little thing in your story hadn't gone right, and if you hadn't written that letter to the right person and all of that stuff, you wouldn't have made it and you would have been locked down. Y'all had already been locked down for a year. So tell us what was going on at the time, why you decided to leave, and then tell us the story.
Okay, so I think it starts, my husband, Chris, he came over with his high school friends from New Zealand. Like they all grew up in New Zealand. In 2018, they decided to go on a road trip. They hired a Winnebago and this group of 40-year-olds went skateboarding around America, right? It was a road trip. And at the time, Chris came home and he said, I think we should apply for our green cards because there's a different vibe in America. He's saying it's really quite different to what the vibe is here in Melbourne. And at the time we had a business and stuff, and it was like, it seemed like such a prosperous idea that we would leave the country. But he is also in marketing. He pitched it to me as a plot twist. Let's just call it a plot twist. And, you know, if we win this lottery, you know, we'll have it there. So there is the green card lottery that happens every year, which is called the diversity visa. 25 million people apply each year, and about 50,000 people get the right to apply for their residency.
Did you say
so
5 million apply? Is that
25 million people?
That's worldwide.
Apply. Yeah, worldwide. Each year, that's what they do. So, you know, otherwise you've got to either pay to get in or get a job visa and it's not permanent, but this is one way of doing it. So we applied takes about 1.5 years to go get all your paperwork right and put it in. Anyway, I get an email one day, and I was heading to New Zealand, and I had won the visa, which gives me the right to bring my family. Not the visa, I'd won the right to apply. Right, so it was like, okay, well, we'll put in our applications. So this was 2019. And it takes, and they need a lot of paperwork for just to apply. So we were going to do it, and then what happened was that it ended up being the pandemic. And so we got an email saying, look, Trump's actually closed all the applications. He's not letting anybody in and out. No visas are being granted. So we were like, okay, that's okay. It was just a plot twist. About 6 months later, though, we got an email saying there's been a class action lawsuit against Trump. And anybody whose visas were under the right to be applied for now can put their paperwork in to be able to at least put their paperwork and apply. You've got 2 weeks to get all your paperwork ready, and you have to go to meet the people in the Sydney embassy. And so we were in Melbourne, Victoria, one state, and we had to get to Sydney in New South Wales. Now, at the time, we weren't allowed to leave our house without paperwork, and we certainly weren't allowed to leave the city, let alone leave state. So you could go online and apply for permits to get permission to leave the state of Victoria to get to New South Wales, but they denied us. And they were like, no, this isn't a good enough reason. And so we actually got a call from the embassy, and they said, we don't believe this is legal, that the Victorian government can prevent somebody from coming to the US embassy. Put in your application this code, print out this 200-page court case, carry it with you, and see if they will let you across the border. And so we did all that, and we were like, okay, so we've got paperwork now that they might let us get across the border, but Dan Andrews had put these rings of steel around Melbourne, which were police stop points, every 2 to 3 miles on the main roads. And so there was Facebook groups that were tracking where the ring of steel points were. So you could go on, and if Facebook didn't delete the group, you could go on and see if there were pathways to not have to get pulled over by the cops, right? It's feeling really fucking like crazy at this point that we are like getting accustomed to this kind of world. So we got up early one morning. We got up at like 4 a.m. in the morning. We packed our kids up, and we decided that we were going to drive, and we avoided and took all these back roads outside of Victoria, and we decided that would go to hand in our paperwork. When we got to the New South Wales Victorian border, they just ushered us through, and they're like, enjoy your freedom. And they were sitting there all laughing and joking, and nobody was wearing masks. And it was like, it was our first inkling that this was weird, because we had come from this basically militarized environment where police were patrolling the supermarkets, checking IDs, where our 20-year-old had to carry a printout every day, because for him to be able to get to work, he had to go through checkpoints, and he needed government permission to be able to travel. I had a tooth pulled out because they had decided that dentists weren't like essential care, and I had to go to a government facility where I was either given the option of a filling or an extraction. You know, we were living in like this really weird, where our kids had grown out of clothes. And, you know, if you didn't want to shop at like the big stores, there was nowhere to be able to buy clothes. You know, like it was just
It's like a
this
dystopian movie. It's like a dystopian movie.
but it is like a dystopian movie in my world. I have to acknowledge that most people, they didn't see it like that. They saw it as, you know, go to Kmart, which is like Walmart, do your shopping in there. Don't worry about the police checking your ID because that's just keeping everybody safe. And so what my nightmare was safety and being looked after in other people's perspectives, you know, like, but for us, it was this nightmare. Anyway, we get up to Sydney, shops are open, hotels are open, all the stores are open. You can sit down in cafes, you can eat out in restaurants. And we realized when we came down the first morning and we went to get a coffee and we were all standing there and the waiter said, you know, you can sit down, can't you? And we realized then that how brainwashed we had been because we actually hadn't been allowed to, all the chairs had been removed and you weren't allowed to sit down in Victoria if you wanted a coffee. And we were like, we think we're pretty onto it, but we've been conditioned to not even see the tables and chairs, you know.
This is another state. This is like going from, you're trying to get from Florida to Texas or to California.
This is like going from New Mexico to Texas. These are like next door to each other.
But you didn't know that there was freedom going on in the state next to you.
The news had been dominated by Victorian-only news. And to be honest, we weren't really paying attention to the news. Like we would hear that there were outbreaks of COVID, you know, but it wasn't really like, we didn't really think that everything would be open. You know, it was just because by that stage, we had been locked up for almost 9 months, you know, with 1 hour a day being allowed out. We lived across the road from a park where police drones would fly over and project saying, please go inside, it is not safe. You know, so we were kind of living this reality that was, you know, inside our house, we were very happy. One of the best times of my life. It was only when you kind of left and then we're like, oh my God, we can take the kids shopping and we can eat out at a restaurant. You know, it was like, hang on a minute. How can one set of rules apply to one group of people and in the same country, no rules apply? So that was kind of like our first awakening that there was, like, we were awake and I was all over the media as far as kind of the agenda rolling out, but the personal, I guess, having to put up with it in some regards was a bit of a eye-opener. Anyway, so we go have our interviews at the embassy. And when we left, we only had 2 days to be able to get to Sydney before the cutoff time for our visas expired. And so we had to have everything in by midday Friday. And we got there, and we needed police reports from like UK, New Zealand, Australia. One of them hadn't arrived, so we left a friend to stay at our house. And when the courier came, when it arrived at our house, we knew that if we didn't leave, we would miss the cutoff through the travel time. So she paid, and she's paid a courier driver to like put it in a briefcase and drive it up a few hours behind us, and we got that piece of documentation that morning, and it was pretty weird because the guy had handcuffed a briefcase to us, and the documents were inside, and we had to show ID, and then he gave us those documents. So we were like, this is okay. But when we got to the embassy, they said, look, your New Zealand police checks are the wrong police checks. So unfortunately, you know, you probably won't be able to put all your paperwork in, because it takes 6 weeks for the New Zealand police checks to come through that you need. And so Chris and I were kind of nonchalant about it. We're like, well, at least we can go out for dinner, at least we can go shopping, you know, it feels like a break. And so we were sitting there and we looked and we were scouring it, and we looked online, and it clearly said that it was going to take up to 6 weeks, and there was no sort of exceptions. And then we got up early in the morning, and I wrote an email, and it was, hey, I don't know who you guys would bend the rules, but if you imagine that this was the game of an amazing race, if you could possibly get us this police check, it could change the trajectory of our whole entire family, and you would be able to be part of a story that was pretty impressive, you know. And so we wrote this email, and it was kind of like just trying to bring somebody into the fold where we got it. And then we got an email back saying, look, sorry, we can't actually help you. Great email, we can't help you. We've got to follow protocol. And then about an hour later, I got a phone call, and it was like, okay, I've just read your email, and I have printed out all the documentation, and I'm going to walk it in my lunch break to the US Embassy in New Zealand. And so this guy, he took it upon himself to print out the documentation and walk it and get it across town to the US Embassy and hand deliver it to them so they had it. And so I'm like, oh, this is great, you know. So we get into the go back to the Sydney US Embassy, and they are like, we can't believe it, but we just got faxed the documentation that was going to take 6 weeks for you to get, and it's from our embassy, so we know it's authentic, and they've validated it, and you know, we can now process your application. We had 1 hour before the cutoff time for them to have done all of their paperwork, so that was good.
To me, like you've got some like angelic help there. Something is going on.
Well, like we do, like I definitely believe in the angels. Chris and I definitely are, you know, we ask for guidance. We have a very open philosophy around putting in 100%, but having no expectations. So enjoying every action in of itself. How do we create this as an experience? And it doesn't matter what the outcome is. So our philosophy in life is have faith, put in 100%. And I do believe that is a pretty strong way to walk through life, by having that kind of mindset. And we had a great time, you know, like we spent nearly 2 weeks in Sydney staying in motels, swimming in swimming pools, and then we dredged back to old lockdown Melbourne. You know, it was a wonderful time. And in that, it was like, well, how grateful are we that we got to experience a little bit of normality in this time. So we were happy either way. Fast forward, and they approve it, and they're like, yes, you've got everything, boom, your visas are going to be good. And so then there was this weird thing where we were like, well, if Trump gets in, he said that he won't let us in. It's part of his thing that he's going to keep the border closed due to the pandemic. If Biden comes in, he's known as the no borders guy, we'll probably be able to get in. And so we were kind of in this place where we didn't really didn't really know where our loyalties lied, because we didn't really want Biden to win, but we also knew that we'd probably have a higher chance of being allowed in. And this was through all the lawyers.
So tell
that
us
were,
what's the timeline? What date are we at here?
okay, so the date, so we knew October 2020, we knew that we would have our visas were granted. The visas were only 6 months, so we only had until like March the 20th to be able to get into the country. And so the elections were right on the thing where we were like, well, if we've got 6 months, let's hope the pandemic's over. By this stage, we've taken our business online. All of our clients are ready. We were getting ready to build a house outside of Victoria. We were out, so we were like, it doesn't matter. Our lives were now in transit anyway. We knew that we were leaving Melbourne. Like we couldn't live in a big city anymore. So we were kind of like, well, if we move to the States, that will be an adventure. But if not, we'll continue building this house and get out of Melbourne. So we were either or. So we had 6 months with our lives being dependent on the elections, basically the American 2020 elections. And so we're sitting there and Biden wins, which we weren't particularly, from our perspective, it looked like the elections had been stolen. Like the media, it was quite different to what I believe was being fed here. It looked like an inside job for the insurrection, like we were like, this is some fucked up shit. But Biden's the open borders guy. All the lawyers are saying that we'll be able to go the day that January 6th, he'll open the borders. The very first thing that Biden's Department of Justice was double down on closing all visas and making sure that they were not allowed in. So it was like, well, we think we've got 2 months to be able to use our visas to be able to get in. And now the Department of Justice have said, no, we're not going to let anybody with an American green card visa come in.
Because they want you to come illegally?
Well, it didn't make any sense, but yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is legal immigration we're talking about.
This is
saying no.
This is like, by this, we've spent all the money on the application fees, we're like, and there's like, at this stage, usually there's about 50,000 people that get the right to apply. And I know through the court cases and that there was about 5,000 people that were at worldwide, that are at the same stage as us. So we've got 2 months. Biden's said, no, these people aren't allowed in. There was another class action lawsuit. This time it was against Biden and the Department of Justice. So the immigration lawyers that are out there helping people legally get into this country are absolutely amazing, in the sense that they're organizing and helping people within the rights. That court case went ahead. I think it took about it went ahead early February. We'd purchased tickets for the 20th of February, just because we were like, right, we're just going to do it. The court case happened on the 21st of February. So we pushed our ticket dates out to the 11th of March. We gave ourselves an extra 2 weeks. The court case was the first court case where the judge ruled against the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice was bullying both the lawyers and the judge, saying you cannot go against Biden. Like, it sounded like it was a very icky situation, but the judge granted us permission to be able to enter the country with our visas. So we had 2 weeks. A 2-week window to pack up our kids and get the fuck out of there.
Okay. And so you did.
So we did, and we landed in California, and it was like, what have we done? We've we've made a mistake because everything was shut down. Queues and queues and queues to vaccination stations, and everyone was masked up. Like we literally were like there, jet lagged, going, what have we done? We bought a car. We spent 3 days sort of recovering, like, oh my God, we actually got out of here. Okay. And then we got out. Once we got out of California, we spent a couple of days in Palm Springs. Things started to feel a little bit normal. Once we got out of LA, we ended up driving we did 17 states. We went on a 5-month road trip. We had the best time, us and our 3 teenage boys, and we just lapped up freedom. It felt like we had the entire country to ourselves, you know, like when we went to the Grand Canyon, there was probably only 7 other people there, you know, we were driving around Sedona. And so we drove from coast to coast to coast, and we just had a great time driving around, having an epic holiday with our kids for 5 months. So yeah.
Okay, how did you end up choosing Central Texas to land?
So we actually went to Albuquerque. So we went and spent a year in the high desert up in the foothills of Albuquerque. And we rented an apartment in like a swanky resort place with swimming pools. It was just nice. It was easy. It was manageable. Albuquerque was a really good place to be able to go figure out America. It wasn't too busy. Everything was like a 10-minute drive. We got to snowboard every week, you know, in the winter.
During the pandemic, when we would go through New Mexico, it was so just crazy masking, just like it was not a good state to be in during the pandemic.
It was, so I agree, 100% agree, but there was this one thing. Texas was the most masked up state that we went to, right? Because we always thought that we'd end up in Texas. But when we came and looked out Texas, the amount of people that were voluntarily masking really concerned us, because it was just like more people. I would say that Texas was the most masked up state that we went to during that time.
I don't believe it, because nobody I knew, and we weren't masking. That's crazy.
But we didn't spend time in the hill country. You know, like we went to Dripping Springs because I kind of thought maybe when I was in Melbourne, I thought maybe Dripping Springs would be where we landed. But you got to remember, we basically, we didn't know Texas, so we were on the arterial roads, and you know, Fredericksburg, we spent a couple of days in Fredericksburg, and all the tourists were masked up. Like it was definitely, from an outsider's perspective, it seemed really disappointing, because we had kind of thought, fuck yeah, Texas.
Okay,
and then it was,
I mean, Austin was bad. Austin was horrible.
Austin was terrible. Austin, the amount of homeless people that were there and the amount of masked up people there when we first went to Austin, it was, we were planning on spending a few days in Austin, and the vibe was just so terrible that we drove straight through to Fort Worth, because it was like the homeless people in California were really bad. You know, it was really interesting to drive through and show our kids the amount of homeless people. And we were in Venice Beach and stuff, and you know, so we were seeing that problem. But even Austin at the time seemed worse than California from what we saw.
Wow. But
we didn't go to Skid Row, and you know, like so we moved to Albuquerque. And yes, it was like the radio stations, it's blue. It's as blue as, you know, I believe like Netflix is putting $1 billion investment into Albuquerque. It's the new California as far as film production and stuff like that. The resort that we were staying with, There was a lot of Californians that were there working through film and television. So it was blue, but there was the people that we bumped into, as you do, were mostly freedom-loving people. But we couldn't connect in some sort of form of community there because it was progressively getting more and more rigid in the ideology. I think so. Anyway, we kept coming back to Texas because we kept coming back to go see music gigs and we came down to the hill country to see Willie Nelson. And it was just so beautiful. The dappled light, the landscape, the amount of people that were just so beautiful and warm, just bumping into and talking to us, the Guadalupe River. And so we had the best weekend, and we were like driving back to Albuquerque going, yeah, we're moving there. So we basically drove home, bought the kids a week's worth of groceries, turned back around to come and find where in the hill country we were going to move to.
Okay, well, welcome to Texas. I've already welcomed you. I'm
It's so good, and we just love it here, and we just meet the best people, and it's just amazing. Like, I'm just so blessed and grateful to have landed here.
Well, I think so too. I mean, I've been all over and I love this country, and there's so many places I love. And I love places in the world. I mean, I love France and I love Greece, and there's wonderful places. I love Mexico. But there's something special about Texas, and most people don't get it, and that's fine, but we can't have everybody. All right, so I want to know about this thing that you've got going on. I'm going to read a little bit about it here. So Rebel Heart networking is what we're going to be talking about. This is this thing you've brought into existence just recently with all of your skill set. Jacquie combines her business acumen and desire to collaborate with awakened individuals. She aspires to create a space where business is viewed as a noble exchange, free from greed. Her vision is a community where businesses embody freedom, integrity, and genuine commerce. Determined to share the prosperity that networking offers, Jacquie invites you to join her in redefining modern commerce and crafting a brighter, more genuine future, one Rebel Heart at a time. Rebel Heart is first about marketing and prosperity for local businesses. Second, about building community through action. And third, about enrichment so people can make better choices to fight against the encroachment of the globalists and their desire to create a neo-feudalist situation. Independent businesses are an essential tool to help create a new renaissance. Together, we can redirect money into our local economies and reduce the power the large corporations have. What a fabulous vision. So tell us about it. Yeah, tell us about it.
Okay, so Rebel Heart Network. This is basically what I imagine, and it's a vision. It's launching in January. Basically, business networking is the easiest way for businesses to be able to grow their businesses. Like, if you can get in a room and have permission to tell people about what you do in your own authentic voice, it is going to amplify and resonate on a level that just works, right? So I was involved in BNI in Australia for years, which is a business networking group. It's in America. It's amazing. Last year, the BNI network members, they did $20 billion worth of business between each other last year alone. And so we grew our business exponentially through business networking. And even though we would do marketing, the return on investment was always hands down the best through business networking. I would do 4 networking meetings a month, and we would put on one event. And in those sort of 6 hours, I was returning $10,000 an hour consistently for years, just through understanding the mechanisms of business networking. So when I came here and I was going to these freedom events and I was meeting all of these beautiful people, and most of them are self-employed. Just through the nature of independent free thinkers, they kind of are like more likely to back themselves and want to call the shots and how they make their money than not, right? So I'm like meeting all of these amazing people, and yet they would very rarely talk about what they were doing. They wouldn't, right? It's not, because if you're in a freedom community and you're talking about, you know, independence and globalists and the fuckery and escaping the matrix, there isn't actually anybody holding any space in order for people to be able to tell what they do for their living. Now, it could be good manners. You know, I'm coming into a new culture here. There could be a whole lot of different things, but it seemed like a missed opportunity to have people sharing their commerce and telling each other what they did and why they got out of bed in the morning. And so I was thinking about this, and I'm very much like seeing people very vocal, and there's a lot of people able to point out what's wrong in the world at the moment, and they build these big platforms and then they try and sell something, which is fair enough, 100% get it. But I wasn't seeing anybody saying, why don't we all just buy amongst ourselves? And so I believe one of the ways that we create freedom is through having a parallel economy, but it comes down to being able to have choice. We had the mobility to get out of our situation because we had financial mobility. And so when things potentially get bad, I want as many people as possible to be able to make choices for their medical freedom, for their family freedom, you know, for their food freedom. There needs to be a system in place that gives people the ability to be able to make choices where they aren't dependent on a system that provides them with anything that can be removed from. So that's kind of like where the idea started.
Okay, so you're speaking my language there on all the parallel systems. That completely makes sense because all of our systems are broken. They were broken from the get-go. So that makes sense. What is brand new to me, and I want you to clarify, what I don't understand is, it's brand new to me to think that sitting in a room of other business owners would boost my business. Obviously, it would boost it a little bit, you know, like, so let's say, so it kind of depends on what you have to offer. If you are let's say if you're a dentist, okay, great.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for a dentist who they could talk to and be like, hey, do you know if there's any nanotechnology in your anesthesia? You know, and not sound crazy, right? I mean, that would be great.
Yeah. That'd be good.
And
So
I'll go ahead.
So I'll give you the breakdown. So you're trying to see how it would apply to many different businesses, that it would work by being in a room with people. Is that your question?
With other business owners, because like I'm of that mindset that you market to the masses. That's where that's what the consumers are. So how does me talking to a dozen other business owners turn into
it's a good question, because I've been in marketing for years, right? So the whole idea that you have to project out to this audience has been so seeded into the mindset of humanity, right? And so I just reject that as a concept anyway, right? Because we are magnetic beings, and if you are in alignment and your message is within alignment, through the law of attraction, and that people will come to you, and there is a magnetic force, right? So the closer you are to being in your truest authentic self, the stronger your messaging will be. So there's one idea. Asking is the key to receiving. So most people, when they market, they do not directly speak in an authentic truth about what their needs are. There is usually some sort of trying to create some sort of trickery, or it's about something, and they're not asking for what they need. And so there's a reverse polarity in the way that marketing happens anyway, that is quite often not in alignment with people, like they don't want to necessarily do social media. They don't know how to market their business. And what it is because marketing has been used as a form of social engineering since Bernays introduced it after I think around the Second World War, as a way of not just necessarily creating sales, but as a way of social engineering. And those systems are no longer working for the Awaken. So we have to speak in our authentic integrity to be able to have any real projection to create any kind of resonance with the people that we're talking about. The idea of having people sitting in a room together does seem pretty weird, though. I 100% get it, right? And there's two things that happen. So there is a thing called Dunbar's law. Now, Dunbar's law is that the human brain can really only contain 125 people and connections in their field or in their brain, right? So we only run at this tribal level from a connection perspective. There's 125 people in our networks, wherever we are, and people will drop off. And social media has created this artificial sense that you are running these larger scripts, but I've looked at, it's not necessarily going to create you any money, even if you've got large money. You know, it's just this thing. So we're all running around with these 125 people in our networks based on that is the capacity that the human brain has, Dunbar's law. So when we're in a room, and say if we're in a room of 30 people, we're not just talking to 30 people, we're actually connecting them to maybe 3,500 people from that combined network. Now, repetition is one of the most important ways for people to understand marketing. You know, you turn on the TV and it's the same ad. You know, if you ad, mainstream media, same lie. Repetition happens because what happens is the reticular activating system in our brains is rewiring to be able to understand and start looking for the evidence based on what we are needing to see. So you buy a red car and then all of a sudden you see so many red cars, or you're pregnant and then all of a sudden you see all these pregnant ladies. You know, our brains are hardwired to see and collect the evidence that we need in order to survive and be part of a tribe. So when you start meeting with the same people regularly and you start talking in a way where you can authentically say what gets you excited and jump out, and this is what I do for a living, and this is who I want to work for, and you get to be in your authentic truth, and they are receiving that information, their brains actually start becoming hardwired to see the opportunities for you. And so it creates an effect where the resonance of the group, if you believe in woo-woo stuff, is all becoming highly attuned to be able to create like a collective antenna to draw the people into your network that are of a match, that are going to be a good customer for you. And so one of my networking groups, we all started off making about $600 a month. We're all thrilled, you know, get together, make $600. Within 2.5 years, we were making about $30,000 each a month on average. It went to us making about $10 million collectively together. And it was things like the people feeling confident enough to ask people for bigger requests. Like one person would be like, you know what? I would absolutely love it if I could meet the head of Telstra, which is like the largest phone company. Now, he would have never have asked that to a group of strangers 2 years earlier. It would have seemed really weird. Somebody in that room said, he is my brother-in-law and I will organize a meeting with you.
Hey, okay. It ding, ding. It made sense. So like if you were
Okay.
if you were selling, like, let's say you were a roofer and
Yeah.
or you had a roofing company, and this is just random, and
Yeah.
you put it out there. You said to these 30 people in the room, I have a roofing company, and then the next day, one of the people in there is talking to one of their neighbors who said, God, I got to get a new roof. They just
Totally.
sale for you.
And then the vouching of someone. So how much more powerful is it when you go, I know this guy, he's awesome. He's one of us, or he's a good guy, he's straight up, he's gonna give you a good price, or he's not gonna. You will trust that over a Google review. Now, we understand the manipulation and the censorship of Google as an organization. Their integrity is so low now that, I'm surprised anyone still uses it, but apparently 96% of the population still uses it. But I will take a friend telling me that they know somebody and they could, time and time again. So the power of the interpersonal relationship comes into play. Now, I called it Rebel Heart because I believe that the globalists and the totalitarian or whoever, they are cut off. And so they only operate from the 3 lowest chakras. So they can't access new ideas. They can't access heart energy. And they are very rigid within the matrix of how they operate, which means that they need to manipulate in that. And so part of the vision is to be able to attract people that have heart, that understand what it's like to love. Because people that are heart conscious people, they're going to be authentic and they're going to run a true script of honesty and integrity. And so, I believe that words are spells. And so when I was coming up with the name, heart was very important. And then the rebellious people are the ones that get to change the world. And so, yeah, so it's really, it seems weird, but it absolutely works from a marketing perspective.
Okay. So it's basically where there are local hubs of groups that are getting together. And this is starting in January 2024. Although I know I went to the website, so I saw that you have a few local people here around in the Wimberley area who have already signed up. But this could be going anywhere, right?
Absolutely. So basically, and so basically the idea is that you join a hub. Or you become a hub leader. So we need 15 people of business orientation to join to start a hub. They meet regularly. Every 2 weeks you meet and there's a structured meeting where you get to ask for what you need, and then you get to also give gratitude to anyone that you've done business with, and you are also working together to find people that you want in your network. Like as a carnivore, I want ranchers and people that I can buy meat from. I don't want mRNA vaccines in my food supply. And I'm sure that I can have somebody that I can buy off locally turn up, save me time if I can text them and say, bring me $400 of meat or whatever it is every 2 weeks, right? So we're looking for people that potentially are going to help with our food security, our physical security. And there's some people that we want in this membership that are going to be integral for our community's safety. You meet every 2 weeks, you get to ask what you want. But the whole idea is that we have enough hubs that people that have got time are more than welcome to go to other hubs. So, I might have time when I'm in Wimberley, the Dripping Springs one is on, and I'm going to go there and I'm going to hear about everybody and what they've got to offer. So my periphery vision I understand who in the network we can facilitate, but also I also get to speak up and say, hey, it's me. This is what I do. If you need some branding or, whatever it is. So because we need this network to be in every town in America, where we are building networks of people that can facilitate action. Now, I recently spoke at the Texas conference where I did some research about the GDP of Texas, 55% of it is earned by 1% of the companies, the globalists. 44% of the GDP in Texas is through small independent business. So there's only an 11% difference that would swing the power. And so when I did some numbers, if we could spend 20% and shift our spending and spend 20% more than what it would be to a local economy, it would result in an extra $200 billion going into small businesses in Texas. Now that gives a lot of small businesses some financial mobility. They get to make choices. And so, you know, we can use cash. We can write checks. There's all these things, you know, that can starve the banking system. You know, that money of banking fees isn't getting leached out of the system. So it's really about shifting our awareness and being able to make conscious choices. And so part of my idea is we're all really busy. We're all stretched. We've got so much going on as humans that if I know that there's a group of people that I can purchase off, and there's a local coffee roaster, and there's a herbal medicine lady, and that I'm probably going to make better choices and wait and spend my money with them than maybe rushing down to HEB or pressing the Amazon button. So it's also about creating opportunities for us to be able to change our spending habits in a conscious way.
I love that you've thought this through and that you're bringing it out to all of us, and so I guess this is how are you going to get the word out? You know, how are you marketing this?
How am I marking it? Well, I am trying to talk to as many people as possible. I am networking with some groups and trying to partner with groups that have got similar valued audiences. If you become, it's a paid group. So if you become a hub leader, you will get paid to run the meetings. And so there, you know, because I believe money is an energetic exchange. So this is really about, so I've got people that are signing up to be hub leaders because it can facilitate, you're not going to become a millionaire off it, but it potentially can help create an income stream for you. So there's people out there actively looking for members, and I think we've got 7 hubs ready to sign up. So yeah, I will be running ads and webinars, and I will unfortunately be using social media, although I don't particularly love it, to try and spread the word as fast as possible.
Okay, so it's going to be a lot of word of mouth because people are going to get excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think excitement is the most important thing, because if you know anybody, like I've been marketing for years, and you know, most people are really excited about their business. Something was dropped into them that gave them enough excitement and inspiration that they decided that they were going to do it. And then they go to marketing and they're like, well, I've got to try and figure out social media. I've got to try and figure out marketing. And their excitement level goes to usually shame. You know, it's usually like, I can't actually figure this out. I don't have the time. I don't want to learn it. They will then spend money on marketing companies that may not understand them. You know, it's messy at best for small businesses. I'm not talking about like big corporations that can churn it out. Being in a room of highly motivated, excited, inspired, freedom-loving people is infectious. Your levels of affirmation and validation that the world is changing, and it's changing for the good, and you are in a bubble of authentic enthusiasm, and we are stepping in and understanding that we are creating a vision and a future that we will be proud to hand over to our kids, is exciting. And that is the shit that we want to talk about. We want to talk about the power that we have in showing up. And we want to talk about the power that we have in supporting each other. And we definitely want to be doing that financially where we can, because we want our friends' kids to be able to feel safe, and so when you start realizing that this is not just about you making money, but this is about bringing back prosperity into the communities and creating opportunities for not just ourselves, but our kids and hopefully our grandkids, it gets pretty exciting and you definitely want to talk about it. So, I'm really hoping that, and it's fun. Like, as a business owner, there are very few moments in your week where you get to have fun as a business owner. And so I'm wanting to bring a little fun back to owning a business.
The whole thing sounds amazing. So I'm curious, how much does it cost to join a hub and join up with Rebel Heart?
So there is a joining fee at the moment. We've got a joining fee of $500 to join, and then there is a monthly fee of $100 a month, and that goes towards the venue costs. You get a drink when you attend the meeting, and also to help pay the hub leader and facilitating and managing the meetings and paperwork. So yeah, it's probably going to come in at around $2,000 a year to be a member. I am playing with the idea that if you attend 20 meetings a year out of the 26 meetings a year and you don't make your money, there will be a guarantee that you can get your money back. I believe that, that you, if you just show up and you ask for what you want, the universe will give you what you want. So I'm more than happy to make sure that there is some sort of guarantee in there to be able to help people feel safe. And, this is something new as far as bringing it to this community. Business networking it's been around for years, and there's very proven solid models around how it works and how it raises people's businesses. My whole thing is that I want to create a freedom economy so that the freedom community is running parallel systems, so that, I like to think that this is 80% future building, but if the shit hits the fan, we've got 20% of being able to access commute people that we know and trust. So
What if someone had more than one business? Like they were a true entrepreneur who has 3 businesses. Do they join and have to pay it 3 times, or?
So this is a great question, because I haven't had this turn up, but I would imagine that they are signing up as a person, not a business, right? And so you would, and you've only got certain capacity, right? So you would get to choose. If you're showing up to your meeting, you would show up and you'd want to talk about what you're doing. You get a listing on the website as well, so you'd be able to probably list 3 businesses on that on there as part of your membership. But it would be up to you whether or not you're wanting to promote whichever business at that hub. But you could go from Wimberley and talk about business A, and then go to Dripping Springs and talk about business B. Like, if you want to hack the planet, and that's the way that you operate, and you're in your authentic truth, I'm not here to try and tell you how to run your business or how to promote it.
And what if you wanted to bring your spouse and they've got a business too? Do they need to join, or can you bring a guest?
You can bring a partner. You can bring visitors, but you can only bring the same visitor twice. So yeah. But this is new business. These are great questions. Everything's up for grabs at the moment because I'm just winging it. So it's really, like I've been wondering if smaller businesses, there's a flat fee, but if you're like a really prosperous multi-billionaire, there might be tiered systems, or there might be. So at the moment, everything's up for conversation, because this is about us creating win-wins that fit. And I'm sure that this, as we get more experienced and these questions become answered, that there will be more like, oh yeah, this worked last time, or that didn't work and we'll change it. Like it's open.
What's the maximum?
I just want
What?
I just want bums on seats talking to each other. You know.
Okay, what's the maximum number when your hub reaches 30 people? Then do you have to split into 2 hubs?
No, so there's this thing that I can't remember, but B and I has done some studies on it, right? Where if a hub gets to 30, you start really making money. If it gets to 35 people, the income pretty much doubles that everyone earns, but it starts to break at 40. And so there is a thing where between 30 and 40 is the sweet spot. Anything over 40, you start getting weird interpersonal conflicts, which I hope we're hanging out with aligned people and that doesn't happen. But so between 30 and 40 people. Now, what normally happens is that those hubs will naturally start creating their own groups anyway, just through common interests and that. But most, like, there's a networking group in Austin and there's like 10 chapters and all have got 30 people, you know. So they just manifest through the natural leaders and the vibe. You can go to a couple of different groups and know which group you want to be part of. You just
Got it.
you'll know that.
Okay, well, so I want to ask you, because that's a segue. You already made the segue into the carnivore diet. I want to talk to you about that because that's so cool. But is there anything else you want to tell us about Rebel Heart before we move on?
Just if you feel inspired to start a hub, because I think that there are a lot of people that would love the opportunity to step up into a leadership role, but they're not potentially feeling like they're not naturally social media people and they're not naturally out there trying to facilitate large groups. But if you've ever felt like you would like to do something to help create change, go onto the website and put your details down to be a hub leader. I'm going to offer, there's training, there's scripts, there's a whole membership platform built with tools to be able to help that, because the real magic is getting as many leaders in the community that are confident enough to speak out, to hold space for our people, and to bring the community together and start bringing this prosperity into light. So if you're like, this would be a great idea, I don't know if there would be one coming up in my neighborhood, please jump on the website, talk to me, put your name down. We'll see what we can do to start one up. You know,
Okay, say the what's the website?
rebelheartnetwork.com.
Rebelheartnetwork.com. Rebelheartnetwork.com. I'm saying it like you. Rebelheartnetwork.com. Anyway, however you say it, I will put all that in the show notes. So if people are driving and hearing this, you can find what Jackie's doing. Okay. So one of the things that I learned about you when we first met was this crazy thing that didn't seem so crazy because I had heard about it before, but I didn't know anybody really did this for 5 years. You've eaten nothing but meat for 5 years. Because of health reasons. People need to understand it wasn't like you were some crazy person who was like, screw the vegans, I'm going to eat meat. You were having health. Yeah, so tell us about it.
So for 20 years, I had dealt with autoimmune issues. When my first son, Tobin, was born, I think he was 9 months old, and the doctors said that I probably will be dead before he turns 3 through autoimmune issues. In the back of my brain, I was like, hang on, this doesn't make sense. If my body's attacking itself, surely that's me attacking myself. It never made sense. But for 20 years, I spent trying to manage my house through just crazy whack-a-mole stuff. I'd get like three months of good health, and then I'd crash and I'd be sick for a month. And like before I came on carnivore, I was like, tried everything, keto, paleo. you know, and I knew definitely that I was gluten intolerant and that gluten would inflame my brain and I couldn't really construct sentences, and you know, and I'd puff up and my face would be like the moon. And so I knew that there was definitely inflammation, and I was understanding it and I was keeping it at bay. But if I had these flare-ups in Australia, I would find it difficult to walk down the stairs in the mornings. Like, it was debilitating. Anyway, so it was actually my husband, Chris, who's fit and healthy and he runs marathons and stuff. He was like, and he's always played with his diet. He's always been diet curious. He was actually, he was like, I'm going to try this carnivore diet. And so he did it for 6 months. He lost probably 60 pounds or something. I don't know what he lost a lot of weight. It fell off him. But he was saying that his cognitive powers were he just felt so clear and energized. And so he said, do you think you should try it? You know, it might help. And by this stage, I'd heard like Jordan Peterson talk about his daughter's autoimmune issues going away and stuff. And so I thought I'd try it, but I found it so difficult because of the stigma around it. So it was like my identity was caught up in food, as we all are, like celebrations and eating with each other. And it felt really weird to like think, hang on, vegetables are good for you. Like, it just, there was so much cognitive dissonance. I was just like, anyway, I decided that I'd try it for a month. In that month, the most profound thing happened that hardly anyone talks about when they are talking about carnivore diet, was that the negative self-talk in my head completely disappeared. I no longer had chatter, and it was like no intrusive thoughts. It was just me and this calmness, and I'd never experienced it before. It was like so relaxing out here. Wow, it's like peaceful. And so it was like, hang on a minute, that constant chatter and the churning thoughts and the repetitiveness just completely disappeared. Within 3 months, I was feeling like just complete and utter serenity, and my cortisol levels weren't surging. I was able to hold, I just had this mental clarity that was just, and vitality. I was springing out of bed and I could do things. And, you know, it was like the physicalness, all the inflammation had gone. But this mental calmness and clarity became so strong that it turned into a spiritual connection. And I feel like that for me, that's what happened. That's my most powerful thing about being on the carnivore diet, is the removal of the chatter becomes a quiet mind and a meditative space in order to tune into your intuition.
What do you think that is? Why do you think that's a thing?
I can tell you my crazy ass reason. I just think that food is a drug, right? You know, like you can drink alcohol and you can eat cake and you can, and part of the food is creating different vibrations within your body, the way it makes you feel and the chemical reactions about it. And so I have this feeling, and this is just completely whack job idea, that the war against meat at the moment from the globalists is actually a war against God and people's ability to access true communion with God. Because when you remove the grains and all the noise and all the food that creates a resonance, and this is just for me, but this is why I think it's like they are persistent with their demonization of meat. And you have to think it's not just to starve people, although I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of the outcomes of removing large chunks of the food supply. There is a reason why they don't want people eating meat. And there is a correlation between people believing in God and their levels of meat eating, because 50 years ago, America was eating a lot of meat and believing in a lot of God. And so, and I've got nothing to back that up. That's just
I
me
love
thinking.
I love your whack job ideas. I love them. Okay, so what is it about grains that causes people to go wacky minded and monkey mind and crazy?
Okay, so you think about, like, for years, I've joked that soy is the gateway drug to communism, right? Just kind of because it always just seemed really weird that the largest populations in the world that have got, you know, are herded into groupthink, right? And so it was always, and so you've got to understand, like, for me, it's like if you are using food as a way to remove the sovereignty and the creation energy and the accessing, because you're putting in something, and I'm not even saying that it's like manipulative, but something that is inflaming and creating some sort of inflammation to where you are able to access your intuition, you are going to be able to control that group. Now, if you also start fueling them with things like sugar and highly processed food, that's going to create a resonance of fear and amplify their anxiety, yet again, you're going to be able to control them through, programming and media and whatnot. And so, and if you can't hear, like, I love the quote from the streets, you're not the voices in your head. You're not the voices in your head. You're the one that listens to them, right? If people are getting bombarded with voices in their head and anxiety and intrusive thoughts, they don't even know that they're the one listening to them. So if you all of a sudden start removing all of that noise from your being, and you start to be able to intuitively know who you are, and once you know who you are, you get to trust who you are. And once you get to trust who you are, you get to love who you are. And once you are in that strength and that core understanding of who you are, who you're not is so obvious. And so you are able to discern truth, and you're able to discern, and your levels of discernment become so much more attuned, and you're able to access your intuition, and so then you're not really fuckwithable. You become sovereign. And so I think the monkey mind and all of that, it's a control mechanism to
But
keep
why
people
is it that the grains and the legumes and the vegetables and why is it that creates it? What's your theory?
Okay, this is where you're pushing. So I didn't come up with this theory. This kind of aligns with me because I'm really into like aliens and stuff. But we were once free-range humans, right? We were like out there living in tribes, and then all of a sudden, about 10,000, 12,000 years ago, something happened, and all around the world, we learned how to grow grains and farm them. And then all of a sudden, we became domestic animals. I believe that there was some other force, like maybe the Anunnaki, that came down and created genetically engineered sort of crops that helped create a diet where we were more easily controlled and more easily become domesticated, aka put into slavery.
Okay,
And
so kind of like we feed our domesticated animals. We feed our dogs, we feed cattle, we feed our chickens. They were feeding us.
Well, I don't know who they are and that, but it does seem very suspect that when you remove grains from your diet, people are talking about their access to a spiritual realm, and they are able to feel more sovereign in their being. A high meat diet nation will probably want to make choices for themselves and not be herded into an authoritarian governance. And so it is weird that then no one's got real, like their grains and farming and cultivation just kind of popped up. And so I don't know if it's true or not, but if they're genetically modifying food now to, corn that can make people's testosterone levels drop, and they can do stuff with food now to be able to manipulate society. I don't know if there was a time when there was another technological age where that became a thing. I don't know. I know that when I heard the hypotheses and I had experienced a clarity like I'd never, and vitality that I'd never experienced before, I was like, well, be interesting if someone had figured it out. I don't know. So yeah.
Do you eat any vegetables at all?
I don't. I it's coming up to Christmas. It's my son's birthday today. I'll make a gluten-free cake for his birthday. Like, I'm not religious about it. I'm not dogmatic in it. I just know that I will probably not feel as great as what I would if I didn't. I don't eat vegetables off, like they when you try to feed your dog a vegetable and they're not really into it. That's kind of like, why would I eat this? Like, there's no appeal whatsoever.
That was my next question. Do you miss a good salad?
No, there's something that switched over, and there's something that switches over in your brain after your body is fully accustomed to it. So I think it's around the 3-month mark where food no longer becomes entertainment. It becomes a bodily function.
Okay, so what do you eat for breakfast?
Okay, so I ate lamb for breakfast. Being a Kiwi girl, I ate lamb for breakfast. I will usually eat either ground beef and bacon for lunch, or maybe some chicken for lunch, and then I'll eat a ribeye for dinner. And then if I have a snack, it's usually salami or jerky.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, I love trying things out and I love being my own guinea pig. And I've known you now for probably a year, and I've known your story and I haven't tried it. I think we sat down.
It's World Carnivore Month on the 1st of January. So maybe that would be a good time to try it, because there's a lot of information around there. And you have to understand that it's quite hard. The first 3 weeks are really hard.
Okay. Well, I probably don't want to be traveling if we're in holidays and family and stuff when we try it out. I want to be home. And like you said, you got to be sure you're finding clean meat. And I'm sure you are such a conscious, loving person that I know you want to have meat that's been consciously cared for and slaughtered as well. So
yeah, but I'm also like, I will happily just go to HEB and buy some organic meat. Like I try my best, but if we're on a road trip, I'm buying like a Walmart preheated beef dinner. Like, I'm not like, I'm not religious about it. And there's a lot of studies that say, like, if you can't eat organic grass-fed, but I don't want anything with antibiotics in them and that kind of stuff. But, it's a rotisserie chicken from a supermarket when you're on a road trip is, it's pretty yum.
okay, so what do you order when you go out to a restaurant?
Okay, so most restaurants, well, I'll try and just go to a barbecue place because that's the joy of Texas, and eat barbecue. If I'll go, like, a lot of restaurants now will have proteins for their salads. So I'll just order the protein. So I'll just have the side of chicken and a side of bacon or something like that. So most and if we're going out to a restaurant, like, we'll eat, there's lots of good meat restaurants in Austin, but I will happily just go order a steak without the sides.
So it's not cheap. You're talking, this is money you're spending, and because steaks aren't cheap.
Steaks doubled since we've been in this country. So, like, there's a serious meat inflation problem that we should be talking about.
We won't eat a steak out because my husband literally makes the best steak. You've eaten
Well,
it.
you make we wouldn't eat a steak out either, because our steaks are so much better than a bought steak, like, so, but I don't think it's that much difference as far as your grocery bills go, because you are eating so much less. Because because there's that thing called the meat wall. All right, so if you're eating meat, you will naturally hit a wall and your body won't let you eat anymore. You just won't. So you naturally portion control.
Okay.
But say if you are like cooking delicious potatoes and beans, and there's a bowl of chips, and you're social, and your brain's not going to turn off, or you might feel hungry, 20 minutes later and stuff, because it's not nutrient dense, you end up buying a lot more food. Like, I am sure that our food bill went down considerably.
Well, and I can also see why you lose weight, because you can only eat meat, and all the filler with all the extra calories, all the breads and the rices, the grains mainly that and the mayonnaises and all that stuff. You're not doing that.
Totally. And there's, like I have a sugar-free barbecue sauce on, like, I'm not religious about it. But yeah, it's all the extra stuff. And I do believe that the more processed the food is, regardless of how clean it is, something about its vibration creates disharmony in your body. Like, and so I think, I look at my grandparents, and they lived till they were like 97 or something, and they grew their own vegetables. They had meat and three veg every meal for their dinners. They drank, they smoked, but they still lived into their 90s, because they weren't eating like mass produced food. It was very humble food. And so, I'm not saying that I know a lot of healthy vegans, and they've got clarity, and they've got spiritual connection to God. I'm not saying that this is the only way to eat. I just know that it's worked for me, and it's worked for a lot of other people, especially around inflammation and healing the gut. But yeah, the price of it, you could eat ground beef, and like, I'm sure there's people out there on the internet that are like, spending $10 a day to eat a carnivore meal, like, or a carnivore lifestyle.
You season your ground beef. You're using salt and pepper and cumin and...
No. We just use salt. I don't use pepper, because pepper's not good for people with gluten intolerance. So pepper's definitely not something that I participate in. So yeah, it's usually just salt.
Wow.
That I will say.
I just made up a huge parcel of taco seasoning that I'm giving to people for Christmas, because my taco seasoning is so good. I use organic cumin and garlic salt and onion salt. And so if I'm eating the carnivore diet, I'm going to want my taco seasoning on my...
Look, you can do it, but you got it. But I know, like, for me personally, because I've got such crazy food sensitivities, like, I can't even eat slow cooked lamb without getting a histamine reaction. Like, I am so already in such a small confined place of like where I can eat, that it's just easier for me to eat a super bland diet, because I know that I'm not going to have issues with it. But this is like, do what you want. But and there's different, like, some people are like, carnivore diets like 90% meat with a little bit of salad. It's really looking at it from, I think, if you're trying to, what the goals are and how to optimize it.
Okay, I just had to remember
Don't
what it's called. But you're going to be on the front lines fighting against the C40 cities of the global agenda for 2030, where people don't eat meat anymore. You're going to be like, oh, no.
I'm pretty sure that this is why I need Rebel Heart to like succeed so that all the meat eaters have got a secret network of like meat distribution that
That'll raise
don't go on our social credit score, and we can barter for it. You know, like it concerns me, the war against meat, and it concerns me that their optics, you know, like MasterCard and that, are already looking at people's grocery bills to be able to see if they are eating too much meat and that kind of stuff. So it's only going to take a little swing for them to say, you've had your meat limit or your card doesn't work.
Right. You said they're already doing that somewhere?
They're testing it somewhere. They're looking at people's grocery bills to understand where they can optimize their carbon footprint and put up warnings that if you've spent too much money on the wrong food, which we know is going to be meat.
Something we really need to get people to be aware of is that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is a really good thing. We actually need more of it. So
I just saw that they were saying that humans are producing too much carbon dioxide now, and that is a problem for the environment.
Yeah, carbon dioxide is a tiny, it's like 0.04% of our atmosphere. And when it goes up, we have bigger trees, more trees, happier trees, bigger animals, because there's more vegetables. Like this idea that we need to cut down on carbon, it would kill everything on the planet. So,
well, it's the replacement of religion, right? You know, like organized religion was able to, there was a boogeyman and you'd go to hell and you could, you know, and it's transposed. So now there's an orthodoxy around, do you want to kill Mother Earth? And you're going to sin if you do the things that we don't want you to do. And we've got the solutions so that you can redeem yourself. And so the climate hoax is really all about control, and they're using religious principles for a non-religious society to be able to usher in their control.
I mean, I know about the religion of statism, but I had never thought about the climate control and what they're doing to people as in a religious sense, like you just so beautifully articulated it. You're a sinner if you drive a car or take an airplane or have too many clothes or eat meat. But here's how to redeem yourself and be a good, oh wow, I hadn't ever put that together.
Yeah, and it's the you know, like there's the gatekeepers that are telling the minions or the people what the solutions are, so they've got the access to the knowledge and the gods, and it's the white coats that are in a religious uniform that are the ones predicting and telling you what's happening with the climate. And so, and it's this thing that's so nebulous in the sense that it's that you're going to kill the place where you live, you know, like that's a pretty heavy sin. And so, yeah, so when you realize, you know, that it is just religion masking as science and not good, you know, like orthodoxy to control the masses, you start to really start looking at the reasons why, you know, why you would be villainizing a lot of the aspects that they are villainizing. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, wow. And the idea that we're being controlled through our food, that our thoughts are potentially being controlled as well. Well,
you know, like, because you know what it's like. I know that you don't drink, but you know what you're like when you would drink. How adult, you know that if you eat something and then you can potentially, you know, like it, you know that the little pills that everyone are on in the pharmaceutical industrial complex, they're so small, yet they can make such a big difference to people's personalities. Food, you're taking cups of it, you know, it's a lot to ingest. It's going to change the way that change you. So, yeah.
wow. Oh, so much. And it's so much fun. Jacquie, this has been so much fun. I think this is the longest interview I've had yet. I think one of my, no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I just, you know, I drink this giant mug of tea. Hey, speaking of that, whose artwork is it? You know
Who's out?
that's
I don't.
Zan. That's Zan.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Be happy. It drives people crazy.
I love Sam. Sam's like just one of the best humans ever.
Right. So we're gonna tell everybody that's where for Christmas you can buy these mugs, the Be Happy. It drives people crazy. She's got a bunch of them on Etsy.
Oh, put the link below.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing because I've been drinking out of them every time. We happen to both know Zan. She's a wonderful, just a wonderful soul on this planet.
Yeah, she is just the
And
most radiant.
yeah, so I drink that giant thing, and then it's like eventually I do have to go to the bathroom. I'm human, and but I did a really long interview early on with Dale Pond. We went about an hour 40, and I don't know if people listen this long. I have no idea. If you listened this far, will you leave a comment, please, and say I listened to the whole thing because I'm so curious. I don't know how far people listen, and what's
Close. Yeah.
the conversations tend to get more and more and more and more interesting. We tend to find that's the way my podcasts have been. The first 20 or 30 minutes typically is, I think it's the most important thing. It's what I was asking about. It's for you. I thought about it. I was like, I think I want to have an introduction of your story from Australia and New Zealand and how you got here so that people have an idea of who is talking to them. But then what I
Totally.
wanted to get to was Rebel Heart, and I didn't know that our discussion here about the carnivore diet was going to be so fascinating. And
It's weird. So I may have just undone all the work that I was trying to do about Rebel Heart by saying that I think maybe some alien race created, civilization to domesticate us. It's pretty fringe. So, take it with it's just an idea that I think is fun, but it's not necessarily
oh, we
true.
don't know. I can't tell you if aliens are real or not. I don't see why they wouldn't be. It makes sense to me that they wouldn't be. I have never been visited. I can't say,
I have though. I have on, and so that's for another time,
okay.
maybe.
Well, I think that the people I've noticed that are freedom people have a pretty open mind and are willing to accept the fact either A, that they don't know everything, obviously, or that when someone else has a differing opinion about something or a differing idea, that's fine. How could we possibly all think the same? Why would we wouldn't want to?
I think totally. Well, my whole spiritual awakening came from the idea that I didn't have to think the same thoughts as my husband or the people around me. And then I realized that a lot of my thoughts were like part of this identity that had come through programming, through social, what I needed to be for my parents. And so there were all these layers that had created this idea of my identity. And then I wanted to shake them all off. And when I was like, well, what would I want to rebuild with? I was like, well, I was fascinated with aliens as a kid. I'm going to get back onto that because that just delighted me. And so, it was like, I don't care if they're real or not. I find the whole idea of lost histories and that so fascinating. And especially when you see the narrative and the media being used as a tool to write history. Like, I think all the lies that mainstream media now project out aren't for the people that are living in this time, it's for the people in the future so they can create the evidence to tell a new story based on how they want programming of the future to happen. And so now I'm even more dubious about.
That would make me want to suggest, especially to young people, but old people too, all of us, we should be journaling in real journals with real pens and paper because that's going to be accurate documentation of someone's experience during this time that couldn't be manipulated because anything that's online, I think they can manipulate and change.
So true. And it's so important that you're out here doing podcasts with freedom people, where you're hearing what actual real people are saying and thinking in their little piece of the world. Like, that is so amazing to be able to have that documented for people, because I believe there will be a time when they look back and try to find the evidence for what actually happened in this time frame. And they'll be digging up, listening to the Freedom Junkies podcast. It's gonna be
Probably got to
great.
go back and listen to all of them because these were real
Yeah.
people talking. It wasn't manipulated by the powers
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah, totally. So amazing. Wow, I'm sure we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I think we're going on 2 hours here. It's not quite. We didn't make it. We didn't make it to the 2 hour mark. We certainly could. And I just am absolutely fascinated by the way you think and what you're doing. And I think that your authenticity is going to make people, I don't think you have to worry about people going, oh, that lady's crazy. She only eats meat and thinks maybe aliens started. So I'm not going to join the Rebel Heart Network. I think,
No, of course
yeah,
not.
I think your authenticity is such that people go, oh, I get it, you know?
Yeah, I'm curious. And I think most freedom loving people are curious by nature because that's how they've drawn their own conclusions, by being curious. And so, I'm not dogmatic. So you're asking about what happens if a couple want to join and stuff like that. We've come from an authoritarian mindset where everybody has to follow the rules and do everything the same thing. Now it's time for us to blow that wide open and start creating our own realities and finding the rules that make us thrive. And so, I hope to be able to bring some of that into Rebel Heart while still having it structured where everyone gets to do that. But yeah, we're here to play.
Yeah,
We're here to play.
Okay, well, is there anything else you'd leave us with?
Just if you're going to do carnivore, just know that there's bacterial die-off, and so you're going to have, like, after the 3rd day, you're probably going to have like diarrhea, and then and then at day 10 you're probably going to have diarrhea again, and then at day 21 you're probably going. So there's a lot of poops.
Okay, so what's happening? The bacterial die-off. What's that? The
bacterial die-off it feeds on sugar, right? So all the Candida and all the bacteria, which has been proven that will make you eat sugar. If they need it, they will actually take over your brain and tell you to eat food. And so you have to know that there's a whole war going on in your stomach around your bacteria that will try and trick you into breaking the diet, make you have keto flu and aches and pains. And so you have to be aware that in that time, you're going to have pretty strong cravings. Your body's going to ache because as the bacteria dies off, it's going to make you be inflamed and you're going to feel like shit. And so there's, from my experience, day 3, day 10, day 21 is kind of like where all that stuff happens. And so you really want to hydrate. You really want to take lots of electrolytes. And you really want to just know that within a month, things are back to being great, even better than before. But there's some hard transitions.
Okay, very good to know. I think I'd probably read a few articles, but I think we'll probably give it a try. My husband would love it. He would be
in heaven, surely. He loves meat.
He loves meat, right? He could be like, all right, brisket it is. Brisket for breakfast, brisket for lunch.
Brisket. I drink a lot of bone broth. I have bone broth for breakfast as well, because your brain runs on fat. And so it's good to start the day with like a hit of fat. So
awesome.
But I still drink coffee because coffee is awesome.
So you do.
Okay. Well, now.
Okay. All right. Well, till we meet again, Jacquie, also known as Jacquie Baker. And I want to give a shout out to Chris's Coins again in South Austin. Chris Coins, KRIScoins.com. Go visit him, get your gold and silver there. Tell him Betsy from Freedom Junkie Radio sent you, and thank him for sponsoring the show. Jacquie, thanks again for coming on. I'm so happy we did this. And all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Till we meet again. See you later. Ciao, Freedom Junkies. Till next time. I live better than a king ever did. I live